Greetings everyone, Dennis Chang here. I'm gonna film these videos back to back because I will continue my travels again. I'm in the west coast of Japan, but I'm gonna head to the middle of Japan for some work for the next 2 weeks. So I have to film these videos while I still have my gear here. And pardon me if I talk more, if I'm facing this camera so that it can be clear, the voice can be clearer instead of looking at you guys because you guys are beautiful. But yeah, I originally wanted to film these videos outside to show you the beautiful scenery in Fukuoka, but it's insane. The world is ending. It's getting so cold as Canada, and it's so weird. And apparently tomorrow suddenly it's gonna get super warm. It's the end days, I tell you. Okay, let's get started. Today's topic is very important. Is about practicing. A lot of people ask me, what do I think of so and so? Barry Harris, Jens Larsen, all those people. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is the end result. The art of teaching and the art of learning is a very complex science, in my opinion. It has a lot to do with psychology. And what a lot of people are teaching out there, and this goes for myself as well, but I always usually say the context. What a lot of people are teaching is correct and yet incorrect at the same time. Correct meaning that in certain situations it's probably the thing that you should practice, but in certain other situations it might not apply to you, or it's too early for you to be working on that. And that's probably one of the biggest problems with modern education in general is they try to, with marketing techniques, shower you with fancy words like super fancy Locrian scale with diminished seventh with flat 13 and whatever, blah blah blah, all these fancy things that you have no need to know until you've gone past a certain point. For me, a lot of it is like, let's say you have 5-year-olds. You're not going to teach them, calculus or linear algebra or whatever, like advanced science topics. You're going to start with, especially with kindergartners, like, what color is the guitar? What color is the roof? What color is this? What color is my shirt? Gray, yay. You start that way. And it seems that in music education, it starts right away with, all right, you got to know your scales, you got to know your arpeggios, you got to know your blah, 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 blah. It's insane. So there we go. Yeah, a lot of people ask me, what do I think of Barry Harris? What do I think of my friend Christian Van Hamer? Blah, blah, blah. They're all great. They're all great. But none of that matters. The best teacher is not Barry Harris. It's not Christian Van Hamer. It's not me. The best teacher is you yourself. You have to learn to know yourself, what your goals are. What is it that you're specifically trying to achieve? And then you have to learn in that way. You have to be self-taught in that sense. Now, being self-taught, as I've said in other videos, does not mean that you don't go look for outside help. It means that you have to know where you want to go. Then you have to do the research yourself, as much research as you can make on your own. When you get stuck, that's when you ask for help. That's what I often do. As many of you know, I'm learning flamenco guitar right now, and I transcribe a lot. I listen to a lot of music. I watch a lot of YouTube tutorials. I try to learn as much as I can on my own. Then when I go to my teacher, I can ask a lot of questions. I just had a lesson 2 days ago where I asked so many questions. It was just so very informative to have someone who's an expert at this stuff. So thank you so much, Sensei. This guy from Brazil living in Fukuoka, west coast of Japan. Unbelievable. Thank you so much, man. So you have to be very specific with your goals. And that's where a lot of people have a lot of trouble, in my opinion, especially beginners. When they say they want to learn jazz, they don't really know why they want to learn jazz. I know so because I was the same. When I was about 15 to 16 years old, I used to buy these guitar magazines, and I was like, oh, you gotta learn jazz theory, you gotta learn jazz, you gotta learn this, blah blah blah. So in my mind, it's like, oh, I wanted to be a good musician. For whatever reason, I don't know, just for my own ego or something. And I thought, oh, I better learn jazz. So I went to see teachers to learn jazz, but I never got anywhere because I didn't have any specific goal until I discovered Django Reinhardt. When I heard Django Reinhardt for the first time, I felt this deep emotional connection to the music, and I told myself, I want to do this. I started learning the songs, I started learning the phrases, the solos, which were too hard in the beginning. Luckily, there were other players like Stokel Rosenberg who were playing fast lines, but much easier to digest in terms of absorbing the language. So that's what I did. my good friend Christian Van Hemert, who's also a YouTuber, you can find his channel. He has a bigger channel than I do because he started way before I did. But we have these conversations all the time, and he told me one thing that I think he took a class or someone he watched some video or documentary about marketing, and he said that the key to good marketing is to come up with a catchy name. So that's where he came up with the Van Hemert system. That's why people have like the Barry Harris system, the diminished six, blah blah blah. All these fancy terms, bebop scale. These are all fancy terms, marketing terms to. I mean, they're good. The labels are good. It helps us identify things, but it also gives us the student the wrong impression that the labels always existed, when it was not the case. Especially in early jazz education, a lot of the terminology that is used today didn't exist even 50 years ago. Words like Dorian, Phrygian, blah blah blah. Of course, those words always existed in the world of music, but in the context of modern contemporary jazz education, those were not common terms in the 30s, 40s, and even the 50s. It's gradually became the norm starting, I would say, in the 70s, thanks to music schools like Berkeley, etc., who helped popularize and standardize the terms. So when you start, and why that is important is because if you start to think that it was always that way, it gives you the impression that people specifically practiced that one way when it was not the case. So the best system is not the Van Hamer system, it's not the Chango system, it's not the Barry Harris system, it's the system that works out for you. I made a video, I think, during the pandemic that went kind of viral, where I said that it's a similar topic, where I said you have to be self-guided in your studies. You have to write your own book, so to speak. The best jazz guitar method book out there is the one that you write for yourself. And the funny thing about that video that I made, I got an email from someone who was actually serious. He just saw the title of the book of my YouTube video, and he asked me where he could buy my book. He didn't even watch the video. All these people, these marketers who said, I finally, after all these years, I bought all these jazz guitar books, and they never addressed the issues that were troubling me. So I decided to write a book, and finally now you guys have access to this information that no one else has talked about. Makes sense, right? That person discovered the formula that works for them, but it might not work for you. You have to find the formula that works for you yourself. This is probably going to be for the next video, but psychology has a lot to do with how you learn, right? It's one thing that's great in the modern world is that we have so many resources available to us, but many people are not taking advantage of said resources for different reasons: pride, ego, etc. And that's a shame. There's this expression, casting pearl before the swine. We'll talk about that in next week's video, which I'm going to shoot after this one. But you have to work on yourself. It's not just the teacher. Like I said, you have to be the teacher, and therefore you have to develop this attitude to want to learn, to be very curious, and to sincerely want to learn. Because I believe a lot of people say, oh, I want to progress. And these people even maybe practice, and they do progress a little bit, but in my opinion, they don't progress as fast as they potentially could. A lot of this is because of them themselves. They have certain fears, insecurities, and these feelings I understand myself because I've gone through them before. And over many, many years of training, I've learned to accept that there is a very, very efficient way to progress. And I'm living proof of that, not just me, but other people. So it's that who have applied the same formula have been progressing really rapidly. And it's no big secret. You watch my channel, I talk about it all the time, so you have to watch many of my videos. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe. Woohoo! And if you want to support me, maybe you can buy something off of DC Music School. I really need the money. I really, really do. Please. A lot of people are afraid of the truth. And I've been following this bass player, very famous, Jeff Berlin, on Facebook. He makes a lot of controversial posts. A lot of people give him flack for saying what he says. Now, if you really listen to what he has to say, he can be very, very nuanced, and a lot of things he says are very interesting. It's not that I 100% agree with everything that he says, but I can tell that he thought a lot about the process, and he's similar to me in that sense that he understands that there is a way to progress. But in the modern education world, where it's all about flashiness and bling bling, what so to speak, sometimes the things that are marketed to students might not be what is best for the students. And that's why a lot of people don't progress either. They're not being honest with themselves. So again, you have to work on yourself. A lot of people go to teachers to feel good about themselves. They say, "Oh, I had such a great lesson. I've seen some people like that. I went to see so and so famous player. This player is the ideal teacher for me. He makes me feel," or he or she. Well, I'm thinking of a particular example, but someone told me, "Oh, this teacher makes me feel so good." And after 5-7 years, the playing has not improved. But and they go, every month to see this teacher. For me, it feels like they're going for like a play date, basically paying for the company of a famous person. You're learning nothing, but you're feeling good. And that's kind of the state of a lot of education today. People just want to feel good. The truth is, the content is what matters, not the feeling good process. And unfortunately, if you really want to progress, you have to come to terms with the fact that actually it might not always be a feel good feeling, so to speak. Many of you know that I'm working on flamenco guitar right now, and my goodness, it is brutally difficult. So difficult. These techniques, alzapoa, picado, tremolo, etc., I couldn't do just 3 months ago, but I practiced so hard. I went to see so many teachers, asked for different opinions, watched so many videos on YouTube. I struggled. I know the feeling. It's painful. But yet, it's painful, but I accept it. I've made peace with it. And I don't, it's not, how do you say, I take pleasure in the in the struggle. I'm a masochist. Because I notice when I get better, there's this deep sense of satisfaction that I've accomplished something. And you have to come to terms with that. A lot of people are very, very afraid of the struggle. They only want to feel good. Yeah, there's something I learned 2 days ago. This pattern. Seems easy, right? But it took me maybe 3-4 hours of non-stop practice to be able to do this. Why is it so hard? Because look, you're holding on to this D minor chord. I'll take off the capo. D minor. This is the pattern. Try with me. And as you play the pattern, keep your fingers on the frets. Then you play these two notes. Then you do pull off. Then you play this note here. Do a pull off, but leave these fingers down. It's insane. Oof. And then after, when you do pull off here on this note, keep this note down. So the pattern goes like this. What you must not do, you have to fight the urge to want to do this. That's easy. But the whole flamenco sound is leaving the fingers on the frets. At the beginning it was like this, man. It was like, and then it would be like, then I play this note. And, oh yeah, drop the deuce. Sorry, children. Yesterday, I started practicing this 2 days ago. Yeah, so hard. You gotta accept that there's a struggle, and you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be willing to work hard for it. It requires a lot of work. And that's also one of the reasons why I think it's very difficult for me to teach. Because I need to know who my student is going to be. Does my student want to feel good, or do they really want to learn? Those are two very different things. And sometimes I'm very afraid to sometimes tell students like, all right, well, you also have to make a choice. The goal, in my opinion, in music is not to be a 100% perfect player. It's to be a player that's competent enough to do what they need to do, and it doesn't need to be at the 100% level. For example, let's talk about, let's say you're improvising. Now, let's say your technique, it doesn't have to be 100% clean. It's almost impossible. For example, a player like very famous players like Birel Lagren or Sylvain Luc, who are always constantly improvising, there are little technical flaws in their playing because they're such high risk takers. Then you have other players who are not taking as many risks, focusing on things that they know how to do well. Then their technique, it tends to be cleaner than Birelli, but at the expense of spontaneity. So you have to choose your battles. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to figure out what your goals are. So it's not about being a perfect musician, but it's being aware of what you think might need some work. I think in terms like, technique, in terms of cleanliness, if you're improvising, maybe aim for 80%, 85% clean. If you're not improvising, if you're playing something that's actually written out, aim for 90 for 95, 96% clean. One or two mistakes here is not a big deal. But if you make the same mistake over and over again, and it's a pretty noticeable mistake, then you need to probably fix that. So for example, let's say you're playing acoustic guitar, like acoustic jazz, gypsy jazz, and you can play clean, but your sound is weak in the sense that it's very soft picking. You can even play fast. This is pretty clean, but you see the tone is very weak. Then you have to be honest with yourself. Are you satisfied with this tone? If you are, okay, fair enough. But if you're not and you come to me for lessons, well, you better be ready for me to tell you week after week, careful, you're losing your tone, careful, you're losing your tone. And I'm very afraid to teach for that reason because I don't want to discourage people. But that is kind of what you need. When I was taking flamenco lessons and my teacher kept telling me for weeks, your thumb, Dennis, your thumb, no, your thumb needs work, Dennis. Your thumb is not right, Dennis. I know the feeling. I was like, oh man, it's just right. But I appreciated the honesty. The teacher was an asshole, but I appreciated the honesty. I need an asshole. I don't need someone to make me feel good. I need someone to shit all over me. Sorry, children. I don't know why I'm making these bad jokes. But yeah, but because of the incessant nagging of my teacher, my thumb has been corrected. So if someone comes to me for lessons, for regular lessons, they want to change their technique or they want to develop certain habits. It might not be easy, and you might need me or someone to tell you every week for up to like 6 months or so, no, 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 until you get a yes. You will get a yes eventually if you accept it. I promise you this. I remember when I first went to see this famous gypsy jazz player, Fabien Lafertin. I was like 20 years old or 21 years old, I don't remember. We were working only on rhythm. I spent 1 month with him. And he kept telling me, no, 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 no. And towards the end of my stay, that month in September, I was starting to feel really dejected because I was about to go home to Canada. I couldn't stay any longer. And towards maybe like the last few days, I went back to Fappy, showed him the rhythms, like, perfect. I was like, what? I had no idea what I changed, but I practiced really hard. And he kept saying no, 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 until the one day he said yes. And that made me feel so good, man. And I got so paranoid because then I went home and said, okay, he said yes, but what if I somehow revert back to my old habits? Because I had no idea what I did that was different. All I knew was that I practiced really hard. I concentrated. So anyway, what I did, 1 year later, I asked if I could go back to see Fappy. And he said, yeah, come back. I went back and I showed him the rhythm and he said, perfect. So there we go. You need to make peace with the unpleasantness. The next thing about teaching, like something like jazz guitar or even any style really, how far do you want to go? What are your interests in that genre? It's one thing to say you want to learn jazz guitar, but what? Like who do you listen to? Joe Pass is not the same as Alan Holder. It's not the same as Carl Henderson. It's not the same as Frank Gambale. It's not the same as Django Reinhardt, Charlie Christian. There are so many styles, but even within the same style, you say you're into 1930s swing. Well, who? Like because Charlie Christian's style is very different from Django Reinhardt's style. Is very different from Eddie Lang's style. Is very different from Dick McDonough, Alan Ruth. They all had their own styles. Gypsy jazz. Angelo DeBar has a completely different style from Stokely Rosenberg, Chavelo Schmidt, Birel Lagren. Completely different styles, even though it's the same quote unquote style. jazz guitar, Johnny Smith, you know, with his beautiful these chords and all that stuff. Joe Pass, Wes Montgomery. Some guitar players are following a certain lineage, you know, like you have Grant Green to Wes Montgomery to George Benson, so to speak. And it's up to you to choose in which direction you want to go. That's why, in my opinion, jazz guitar cannot be taught in that sense. It's one thing to share a lot of information, it's another thing to take advantage of said information. For example, in terms of gypsy jazz guitar, traditional gypsy jazz guitar, I can probably safely say, make the assumption that there's nothing that I don't know about the style. But just because there's nothing I don't know doesn't mean that I can do everything. I have my own interests in that style. For example, I highly respect someone like Adrien Moignard, who's into more. Well, he's been changing his style lately. It's very interesting. He's getting into the roots thing, but who has kind of a bit of a modern style influenced by Bureau-Legren. I don't do a lot of the things he does because I'm more into the traditional side of things. It's just a personal preference. It's not one is not better than the other. You guys saw me take a lesson back in September on this YouTube channel where I interviewed my friend Yuji from Osaka, who specializes in like chord soloing in the 1930s style. He gave me a lesson, and you could see that I knew everything that he showed me in terms of knowledge. I knew how everything worked, but I didn't have the muscle memory to execute it. So it's one thing to know something, it's another thing to really spend hours to develop the muscle memory. That's another key thing that's not talked about enough in music education, developing muscle memory. Because in truth, when you're playing, you should not be thinking, it should happen automatically. I want to show you this thing that I've been working on in flamenco guitar. This pattern, I'll put the capo back on. I just transcribed it this morning, and it's insane. I cannot execute it because I'm thinking too much. I have to spend hours and hours and hours before it becomes muscle memory. This is the pattern. It goes like this. Thumb. Little. The action's a bit too low, but whatever. Thumb. Then golpe. Then up with the index. Then release this chord. Down, up. That already is very hard. And then after this chord. And then back to this. And this tricky. Look at this. What I have to do. I do up with the index, pull off, and then my thumb has to jump to this E string to prepare for what's going to come next. What comes next is not this. This is what I have to prepare for. To get here to this chord. This B7 chord with an E on top. Just that is insane. Just this. This jumping this. That jump from this thumb to this. But then to do, as I jump there, to do this after, so. I practiced like an hour this morning, so. In the beginning though, it was very hard. And then this is the hard part. Check this out. B7. So, I have to play a B7 with a, no, I have to do a golpe here. Then up with index. And as soon as I do that, this technique is called apagado for flamenco guitar. You mute with the left hand pinky. It's not this. It's this. Insane, huh? But this is insane too. My right hand pattern is gonna be this: golpe, up, down, and golpe at the same time. Same thing again. Then up on a downbeat, down on an offbeat, up on a downbeat, down on an offbeat. And this apagado is on certain beats. It's on beats 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And the last N should be legato. So it's insane. A lot of things to think about. Oh. Legato. Switch chords. And repeat the same pattern, but now instead of doing golpe right away, you do a downstroke with the index with golpe. And then right away, apagado. Then. Oh no, and then after it's going to be upstroke on this note, legato. Then after downstroke with the index finger, and right away apagado. So look, legato, staccato, staccato, legato. So the whole pattern I'll try to do. I don't think I can do it, but let's see. Let's from the beginning. I'm gonna do it off time because I can't. It's too hard. Ah. Ah. Nope. Ah. Nope. Nope. So it has to go right away from legato on the B7 last and the 4, legato on a downstroke with the index. Then you switch chords and staccato right away. So with a golpe. No, I messed it up. Then it goes to A minor, the golpe, up, down, and then this rasgado. I messed up. The rasgado has to be this new chord. I have to switch chords. Switching chords at the same time, so it should be like this with A minor. It's insane. My brain, feeling a little bit dizzy because it's so hard. I don't know how long it's gonna take for me to get this to the point where it's muscle memory. I'll report back. We'll see. I started yesterday. Today is which day? I think it's March 18th. I'll report back sometime in April or May if I get it. The point is muscle memory. You have to spend hours and hours and hours, and you have to have this feeling of, oh, it's so hard, but yet so deeply satisfying. You can't help but continue practicing until you get it. You just work very hard. That's the attitude you need to have. You have to search for what you like and you work on it. And that's how you create your own style. Don't let others dictate what you need to do unless it's something that applies to you directly. For example, it makes no sense for me to tell someone who's into trad jazz to check out Frank Gambale. It's completely irrelevant. Now, checking out Frank Gambale, understand his music and all that stuff, which is like modern fusion rock, whatever you want to call it. It's cool. It's good to have knowledge. Knowledge is one thing. Being able to do something is another thing. And to be able to do something is to take that knowledge and to spend a lot of hours to develop the muscle memory so that you're not thinking about it. It just comes out automatically. There we go. That's why you have to be self-taught. Barry Harris, Jens Larsen, Dennis Chang, Charlie, Christian van Hemmer, all these great teachers or bad teachers, whatever you want to call them, none of their lessons matter. It's good to listen to what they have to say, to hear perspectives, but at the end of the day, you have to know yourself. You have to write your own book. You have to be your own sensei. Wow. So deep. Dennis Chang, you're so deep. Oh my gosh, that's so deep. Thank you very much. Alright, I'm gonna film the next video now.